210 by 210 meters. And at Fazenda Parana and Severino Calazans, we have sets of squares that are perfectly aligned to true north, true south, true east, and true west. To do that, you need astronomy. You need people who are masters of astronomy. We use magnetic compasses today, but they don't show you true north. They show you about 11 degrees off true north. To get true north requires astronomy, and it's quite stunning to find this evidence of accurate astronomy and geometry in the heart of the Amazon jungle. Here's a very complex earthwork. It's called Fazenda Colorada. A couple of photographs of it here, and here a diagram of the whole site. These roads are modern roads that have been cut through the site, but one ancient road is there. And what drew my attention to this site was this bit of it, which, if we rotate it, looks very similar in design to the entrance to the other world as depicted in Tucano ayahuasca art. And since it's from the limited archaeology that's been done, it's clear that nobody ever lived in these sites. There is no habitation refuse at all. They appear to have been ceremonial sites, and I wonder if they were connected to that same quest for life after death that we find traces of in Egypt and in the Mississippi Valley. Certainly there's a lot of geometry in the ancient Egyptian afterlife realm: squares, pyramids, circles, and so on and so forth. In the Amazon, as well as the huge earthworks, there are also megaliths. There are indeed megalithic stone circles. This one at Rego Grande, only quite recently discovered, has become known now as the Amazonian Stonehenge. The tilt on the stones is deliberate. It is not a result of the site collapsing. These stones were very carefully braced into position in order to do something special, to focus on a particular moment of the solar year. There are key moments: the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, the sun rises furthest north of east; the winter solstice, the sun rising furthest south of east; and the equinoxes, when the sun rises perfectly due east. What the Rego Grande site does is it targets the winter solstice sunrise. This stone uses a shadow effect to target the entire path of the sun throughout the whole day of the winter solstice. And I repeat, it isn't an accident that it's sloped. It is deliberately, carefully wedged into position. Even the stones that are lying on the ground are there deliberately, because the laterite beneath them was carefully hollowed out and they were placed into that. Between stones 1 and 2, there's a hole drilled in stone 1. It shows us stone 2, and the sun will sit exactly in that gap in stone 2 as it rises at dawn on the winter solstice. Of course, Stonehenge is another solstitial site. All of us, I'm sure, in this room have been to Stonehenge, since it's very, very nearby. Here's how it works at Stonehenge. If you stand behind Sarsen Stone 16 and look north of east at the heel stone at dawn on the summer solstice, you will see the sun rising in direct alignment with your view behind the heel stone, as though the heel stone is like the sight on the barrel of a gun. And in fact, the alignment is reciprocal, because if you stand at the heel stone and look at Sarsen Stone 16 at sunset on the winter solstice, you will find that the alignment also works then. So it targets sunrise on the summer solstice, sunset on the winter solstice. Here is the Temple of Karnak in Upper Egypt. The whole massive kilometer-long axis of the Temple of Karnak is designed to celebrate the marriage of earth and sky. And that marriage takes place at dawn on the winter solstice, when the sun rises directly down that kilometer-long axis and sits on top of this gateway right at the end of the axis. This is what you see if you get up illegally on the back of the Great Sphinx. You see the back of the Sphinx's head, of course. If you were there on the summer solstice, the sun would rise over here. Winter solstice, the sun would rise over here, south of east. But if you get up there on the equinox, when the sun rises perfectly due east, you can see the particular marriage of earth and sky that is being celebrated by the Great Sphinx, because it gazes directly at the rising sun on the equinoxes. Same happens at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. very carefully designed. Place yourself on the central causeway, look directly at the central tower, be there an hour or so before dawn, and then you'll see the sun come up and it'll rise up the side of the central tower until it sits exactly on the top of the central tower, lighting up the whole place like a fairy tale kingdom, celebrating the marriage of earth and sky, as above, so below. Now let's go to North America. This is Serpent Mound in Ohio. Very obvious why it's called Serpent Mound, because there's a serpentine mound here. Santa was able to get this photograph with a drone that she positioned 400 feet above the site. Serpent Mound is built on a natural ridge. And that natural ridge, you can see it in diagrams here, has a pronounced twist to the left, which the head and jaws of the serpent also mirror. And you can see it again in LiDAR, with all the vegetation stripped away. There's the Serpent Mound, and there's the natural ridge on which it stands. And it turns out that the ancients had spotted something very intriguing. This was a place where ground whispered naturally to sky, because that natural ridge is oriented to the point of sunset on the summer solstice. And seeing ground speaking to sky so intimately, the ancients decided to celebrate that moment, and they created Serpent Mound on top of that ridge. Interestingly enough, we've only known this for about the last year. The heel stone and the sarsen stone at Stonehenge were always there. They're natural features. They were not brought from the Marlborough Downs. They stood on that site always. And the reason that the sarsens were brought 20 or 30 miles to Stonehenge was to celebrate that natural marriage of earth and sky, the alignment to the solstices between sarsen stone 16 and the heel stone. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening at Serpent Mound, that here we have a ridge, earth speaking to sky. Let's celebrate it, let's monumentalize it with Serpent Mound. So this is what happens at sunset on the summer solstice. You see the head of the serpent, it seems to be seeking out the sun, and then as the sun begins to go down, you get it more clearly, this beautiful alignment between earth and sky, and silence falls over the scene, and the majesty of the site just overwhelms you. Going north from Serpent Mound, there are two interesting geometrical sites. One of them is called High Bank Works, and the other is called Newark Earthworks. I don't have time today to get into detail on High Bank Works, but I want to draw your attention to one thing. High Bank and Newark are 60 miles apart. They both contain, as well as many other features, including a great square and multiple other circles, they both contain a combination of an octagon and a circle. The octagon-circle combination at High Bank is oriented at exactly 90 degrees to the octagon-circle combination at Newark. And to do that across 60 miles is really a remarkable feat of surveying and setting out and geometry. And we can't deny it, it's a fact, it's there, this 90-degree alignment. This is what you see, this is a 1934 aerial photograph of the circle-octagon combination at Newark. And those parts that still survive are now largely contained within a private country club, including an 18-hole golf course, which promotes itself as, quote, unlike any other in the world. It is designed around famous prehistoric Native American earthworks that come into play on 11 of the holes. Well, I have to say, at one level, I find it very disturbing that this ancient sacred site is now a golf course, but at another level, I welcome it because it's preserved that site. If that site hadn't been taken over by a private country club, you can be absolutely sure it would have been plowed under and turned into agricultural land. So at least something is left, and you can get a sense of the scale of it from these shots inside that private country club. Interesting comparison between the octagon-circle combination at Newark and another octagon-circle combination in the Amazon. Another feature of Newark is the so-called Great Circle, or Fairground Circle, as it used to be called, because they once put a fairground inside it. It's got a diameter of 365.9 meters. I put beside it Avebury here, nearby to us, which has a diameter of 347.4 meters. Both Avebury and the Great Circle at Newark are true henges. A henge is an earthwork, and what characterizes a henge is a ditch and an embankment. And in the case of all true henges, the embankment is placed outside the ditch. That's why we can say immediately these sites were not used for defense. Because if you want to make a moat, why, you're going to put it outside your embankment, not inside your embankment. You can get a sense of the embankment at Avebury here, and even better in this aerial photograph. There's the ditch that runs all the way around Avebury. And there's the embankment on the outside of it, and I'm sure many of you have done the walk along the chalk path on the embankment, and some very spooky, mysterious trees here, I have to say, like something out of Tolkien.
Yo, what's up, Wade? What's up, man?
Left, but this is a true henge, and so
how you doing, buddy?
Are the North American earthworks and the Amazonian earthworks. Ramal do Capatara, that's a true henge with the embankment outside the ditch. And here in Gyges, we have a square embankment with a ditch inside it, and it's surrounding a circle. This is the project that the ancient Greeks called
Counter-Strike, nice,
which is too often attributed only to the ancient Greeks. A similar site existed in Pike County, Ohio. It was mapped in 1848, but it's now being swept away by economic development in the region. And interestingly enough, just last year, the remains of a square formation
I might do a couple more sets.
The southern of the two inner circles of Avebury, so it seems the same exercise was being replicated there. The perimeter of Newark's Great Square on the left is exactly equal to the circumference of the
Earth rotating around the sun.
Center, and another feature at Newark, the observatory.
So it's Earth rotating around the sun, but then there's also this torrid meteor stream, which is the remnants of a comet that came into our solar system, estimated maybe 12,000 years ago or earlier. And there's this resident swarm of asteroids and comet particles that is found at like the outer edge of the rotating stream around Earth. So we pass through it 2 times per year. I think once in I forget the exact dates. I think it might change year by year, but maybe not. I think in October and June, but that might be wrong. And it was proposed that 12,000 years ago there was a higher frequency of impact. Gone crash, maybe, dude. Exactly, dude. Maybe, but we're in a time of low frequency of impacts right now. But what they're arguing is that maybe 12,000 years ago it may have been higher. The frequency of impact may have been higher, which is very possible. I don't want to put this here to scare anyone. Right? I think we're in a low frequency event, but I mean it could happen. And it's just trying to pin pieces of past societies with like current ones, you know. Nice. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's scary stuff, man. So this guy, he's talking about like ancient civilizations that have built structures in alignment with the stars, and the reason why it's in alignment with the stars is because of the asteroids. And it's important to know the stars because there's so many asteroid impacts that have destroyed societies. That's his theory.
Circle has an area exactly equal to the area of the Great Square. This alone tells us we don't need any further information. Geometers and setting out engineers, highly skilled, were at work in the creation of these Native American earthworks. This is such a complicated story that I'm not going to go into it in great depth, but we all know the sun has its stopping points on the horizon.
Wow, man.
We call them the solstices.
That's amazing.
The sun stops still on the summer solstice, stays roughly
That's
in the same
amazing,
place
homie.
for 2 or 3 days, and then starts to move.
You shouldn't be.
back like a
I hope you're not
pendulum
fearless.
swing
Well,
along the horizon. Same on the winter solstice.
yeah, that's
The
very
moon has its stopping points
enlightened
too.
of you.
And those stopping points
You should
are,
value life, though. Always
spread out
value
over a
living
cycle of exactly 18.6
and the organic
years.
being and the
Most of us
fragility
are
of
not
it.
aware of this today. Why should we be? We live
Should
in
not-
light-polluted
should not
cities. We can hardly see the
ignore
skies
that
at all.
because
But if you
people
were the
pass away,
ancients and you
unfortunately, very
studied the
sadly.
skies, you would notice this
Though
phenomenon.
they're controlling, I'm
And
sure
there
they
are
envy
key
people
moments,
being
the
here, right? So
maximum and
the
minimum
value of
extremes,
life is like
in each case of the moon's range
Number one.
along the horizon. And it turns out that the
Big torch
octagon
well
circle
side. Yeah, for
combination
sure,
at
man.
Newark
Likewise,
targets
buddy.
every
man
one
is
of
responsible
these
for his
key
own
moments
fate, my
in the
dude.
18.6
Raiden
year
said
cycle of the moon. And the majesty of it is the maximum northern moonrise, where the moon rises in direct alignment with the principal axis through the circle.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna do a
and
set.
the
I'm gonna do a set.
octagon. Let's move to Cahokia in Illinois. This is called Monk's Mound because a bunch of Trappist monks lived on it in the 19th century and grew vegetables there. We don't know what the ancients called it. And here, it's the largest pyramid in the Americas north of Mexico. And here, the focus of intent and observation was the sun. This is a solar-aligned site, a city of the sun, just as Heliopolis was a city of the sun. This model will show you how Cahokia looked in its prime. There's Monk's Mound, and off to the left of it is a wood henge. And again, many of us will be aware that there was also a wood henge at Stonehenge. And because the post holes have been found
I
and
think it's the
dated,
last
archaeologists
bench press. I might do
have
some
been able
bicep
to
curls to end it,
reconstruct
and then I might be
the
done.
wood henge of Cahokia. And it turns out that the center post through an equinox marker post targets the rising sun on the equinox, and also the summer solstice and the winter solstice are targeted. And this is the effect you get on the day of the equinox with the rising sun targeted through Woodhenge. So I think it's fair to say that there were people in ancient Native America with advanced surveying, geometrical, and astronomical skills. And they put those skills to work in the creation of enormous monuments, most of which have tragically been swept away. How far back can this system be traced? How much is left that allows us to begin to guess how old it might be? Well, we can go back to 1430 BC, which is about 100 years before the pharaoh Tutankhamun took the throne in Egypt, when this mound at Poverty Point in Louisiana was created. It's poetically known as Mound A, and it's the second largest earthwork in North America after Monk's Mound. It's 2,500 years old approximately. But the key feature of the site are these geometric ridges. And a thorough archaeoastronomical study has been done by one of the great scholars in this field, William Romaine. And what he demonstrates is that these ridges align to key moments in the year: the summer solstice sunset, the equinox sunset, the winter solstice sunset, the summer solstice sunrise, the equinox sunrise, and the winter solstice sunrise. And not only that, as we go south from Poverty Point, we come to a place called Lower Jackson Mound, a few miles to the south. And Lower Jackson Mound is much older than Poverty Point. It dates to 3,500 BC, 5,500 years old. And yet, the makers of Poverty Point were not only aware of it, but they used it as the anchor of their whole site, because the three principal mounds of Poverty Point are lined up precisely north-south with Lower Jackson Mound. Watson Break is again about 5,500 years old. It's an oval of mounds, and again the archaeoastronomy reveals the alignments. The summer solstice sunset, the winter solstice sunrise, and the equinoxes are all targeted by Watson Break. That's what the whole site is about. And there's geometry in these lower Mississippi Valley sites. 60-degree equilateral triangles are found in a great many of them. And we can trace the story back as far as Conley, which is securely dated to between 7,500 and 8,000 years ago. How much older the story goes back beyond that, we cannot responsibly say. What we can say is it's at least as old as 8,000 years, and given the massive destruction of the Native American earthworks, I would say the chances of it being vastly older than 8,000 years are very high. Certainly in the Amazon, there is a cosmically aligned site which is firmly dated to 13 50,000 years ago, and that's Painal do Pilau in the Amazon jungle. And I won't go into the details, it's all in the book, but it's carefully designed to target the winter solstice. And there's even a calendar inside it which marks off the 18 to 20 days before and after the solstice, and the equinoxes are also targeted at that site. So we would be wrong to conclude that these marriages of heaven and earth, this connection of sky and ground, this idea, this meme, if you like, we would be wrong to conclude that it is limited to the old world, because clearly it's found all over the new world as well. And we have been taught that civilization is entirely an invention of the old world. That view is very firmly embedded in our own cultural arrogance living in the old world. And there's a very good book actually called History Begins at Sumer by Samuel Noah Kramer, which attributes the whole origins of civilization to Mesopotamia and the Sumerian civilization, and says that it all began here between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Certainly,
All right, one more set to end it.
Until very recently, has been open to
Final
consider
set for
the
today.
Americas as a place where civilization might have begun. And that goes partly back to the long-held view of geneticists, now challenged by the new evidence from the Amazon, that there was a single common and relatively recent origin for Native Americans, and that they came across the Bering Straits when the Bering Straits were a land bridge. That explanation no longer holds because of that Australasian DNA in the Amazon. This is the idea, but it just doesn't make sense anymore now that we don't have a DNA trail in North and Central America. And here's something else. This is New Scientist from the 26th of March 2013, Migration Mystery. Who were the first Americans? I'll just read a little bit of it. Not so long ago, there was a simple and seemingly incontrovertible answer to the question of how and when the first settlers made it to the Americas. Some 13,000 years ago, a group of people from Asia walked across a land bridge that connected Siberia to Alaska and headed south. And those people have been named by archaeologists the Clovis culture. We do not know what they call themselves, but this is the name that archaeology has given to these people, and they made these very distinctive Clovis points with fluting in them,
Dick.
both arrowheads and spearheads.
I'm so tired.
The Clovis first.
I'm so tired, man. What's up, Dick?
That humans had first entered the Americas around 13,400 years ago.
Is that the Kappa face for me saying that there was advanced societies? You're the one that said that you believe that there must have been advanced societies in like Persia, Mesopotamia, Hammurabi,
because there's no room for dogma
pre-Hammurabi.
in science.
What's his name? Xerxes?
Archaeologists who defied that dogma. See, in archaeology,
I think
the
Xerxes
stuff
was around
near
like
the surface of the earth is the most recent, and the
I don't
deeper
know,
down you go,
200
the older
BC
it
or
gets.
something,
That's why
not
we
that-
say
not that way,
Upper
like-
Paleolithic for the recent part of the Stone Age, and Lower Paleolithic for the oldest part of the Stone Age. In this case, the dogma was, and it held for more than 50 years, that there was no point in any archaeologist digging below the Clovis level.
I'm done though, buddy,
because
man. I'm
archaeology
just
had
about to stop
established
shooting,
that there
dude.
were no human beings in the
Sorry,
Americas
man.
before Clovis. And in fact, archaeologists who challenged that doctrine, like Jacques Cinq-Mars, who excavated Bluefish Caves in the Yukon and found evidence of humans there 24,000 years ago, those archaeologists had their careers ruined. I'm not speaking figuratively, they were literally ruined.
Greeks
Their
called him
research
Xerxes
funding
because they
was
couldn't say his
withdrawn, they were
name?
mocked and
Oh,
humiliated at
really? Why? What's
conferences.
his name?
They were just shut up.
I was thinking that
by
doesn't
the
sound very like
archaeological,
Persian.
Community. And as the Smithsonian has recently
Sounds
admitted,
like
rather
Roman.
than launching a major new search for more early evidence, the finds steered fierce opposition and a bitter debate. Quote, one of the most
Kasharyarsha.
acrimonious and unfruitful in all science.
Now that
according
sounds
to
Persian.
Nature. For Jacques Cinq-Mars, it was a
Kardashiarsha?
it
I'm just
effectively
joking, I'm just
ruined his
joking.
career and ruined his life, but he was right. human beings were.
Kashariarsha. Xerxes? Xerxes? I think it's probably Xerxes. Kashariarsha. Xerxes.
Today, as the Smithsonian admits, decades later, the Clovis
They
first
probably
model
hated
has
him too, though,
collapsed.
right?
And
They
it
probably
continues
wanted to
collapse
disrespect
because
him
the
in every way
dates keep on
possible.
getting pushed back beyond 24,000 years ago.
You're a wise
back in the
man,
case
man.
of
You know
copper
your stuff.
in
You know
South
your random
Carolina
stuff,
To
man.
more than 50,000 years ago.
Not
I
random, but like
mentioned
important
Meg
civilization
Algoodyear,
stuff.
the archaeologist who dared to dig deeper than Clovis, and who, just like Jacques Cinq-Mars, suffered terrible damage to his name and his reputation and his career from the hyena-like attacks of other archaeologists. But again, he was right. He took me to Topper. There's the Clovis level, and Al just had an instinct, really. He felt,
know why
I'm
people
actually
make their
not going to
beds."
stop digging once I've reached Clovis. It's a very big Clovis site. I'm going to carry on digging. I'm going to go deeper. And he went deeper, and lo and behold, he found
Nightmare
evidence of
juice, man.
humans present at Topper
Nightmare fuel.
50,000 years ago. And then we have this in Nature in April 2017. The
Probably 'cause they were told to.
Mastodon site,
I used to be in cadets,
excavated by the chief paleontologist
and I used to be
at the San
graded
Diego Natural
at like 6 in the
History
morning
Museum, Tom Demery,
on my bed,
a site
if
that
it was made or
shows
not. It
evidence
was the
of human
worst. It was
presence
literally the worst thing in the world.
130,000
Actually,
years
it
ago.
wasn't the worst thing in the
That's
world.
more than
I'm a softie. I'm a big
115,000 years
spoiled
earlier
softie, but
than
you know what I mean?
Clovis. And I went and met Tom
Escalated to
Demery
the
at the San
president of
Diego Natural History
Stericycle? Are you
Museum.
serious?
And like anybody else who
Just Sin-
suggested
who-
an
who-
earlier date for the peopling of the Americas,
Who's the president? Sidney
he
Miller?
has suffered the most unpleasant and vicious attacks,
Did it go up to
mainly
Cindy?
from archaeologists.
Cindy
Because
seems
he's
very smart. She
threatening
seems very
them.
stern.
They have somehow missed this. That human beings were
A
in the Americas
made
for more than
man.
100,000
Wow, what
years
did you
before
report,
they said.
man?
And Tom
Yeah,
Demery's
dude, you're doing
evidence
the
is
you're doing the
compelling.
real work
The
of
attacks on him will
Stericycle,
continue,
man.
but he spent a day with me. He showed me that evidence in great detail. Again, I set it out at
Supervisors
length
told me, wow.
in the book, and I'm convinced he's absolutely right. He's not documenting the presence
That's amazing.
of an advanced civilization in
Or,
North America 130,000 years
Richard
ago.
Moore. Richard
This
Moore is like the
typical,
operations guy.
Upper Paleolithic,
Cindy Miller is more the
behavior.
business
This is,
front face person. And business lady.
A group of humans who scavenged
Yellow pails.
a mastodon skeleton. Who scavenged
Wow.
the corpse of a mastodon, and they broke open
From the
the
client?
bones, and they extracted the.
Do you think they could have opened in the
and
in transport?
left evidence
Probably
of
not.
their presence there. What is
Dang.
important about that finding is that it raises a big question mark over
That's
our
against
entire notion of the
compliance.
prehistory of the world. Because if the Americas have been inhabited by humans for
Passes from the client to the
130,000
driver,
years,
dang.
more than twice as long as Europe and 10 times as long as
Against.
previously supposed, then everything changes. Suddenly we have a vast, resource-rich landmass.
Back to the clients.
With 130,000 years of human prehistory, of which only
Dang.
the last 13,000 years have been documented because of the
They don't
archaeological
close it
dogma that
themselves?
there was
Like,
no point
what the fuck?
in looking deeper.
Yo,
goodness
man, I used to do the
knows what
pickups
was happening
from the
here
hospitals,
in that
man. It was
time
like
that so far just nobody has
it was
cared
like I had to
to look
friggin'
for. It
interrupt
could have been
like
the
these
location of hitherto
these hospital workers
unrecognized
to collect
advances
the
and
waste.
developments in the
They
story
they
of
found it really
civilization.
important, but dude, they were
One
like
of the reasons that archaeologists have missed
receiving
it has to do less with the
ambulances,
dogma
cleaning
more
up
to do with a
rooms.
global
Like, dude, it
cataclysm,
was crazy,
that
man.
occurred between 12,000
They throw the lid on top and sealed. Yeah, like
11,600
they
years
don't have
ago.
the like they don't have
And
the
that
proper
global
chem waste
cataclysm,
training.
is referred to in geology
They're like
as
hospital
the Younger
workers, you
Dryas.
know?
It's a very peculiar.
It's easy to
climate
do, but
episode
it's
that unfolded
that
between
that
12,800
transmission of
and
information is
11,600
not
years ago. This site, Murray
successful.
Springs, is one of the last Clovis sites, and,
That's
and
it,
what we
man.
see here is a mammoth being excavated, and in the shoulder blade
Yeah,
of that mammoth
always
was
you always have the right to
found a Clovis
refuse
point,
unsafe work, man.
dated to 12,800
You don't want to touch
years ago.
anything.
But that was exactly the time that the Clovis culture disappeared, and it was exactly the time
That's
that the
sick, man.
mammoths
That's
and the
cool.
mastodons and the megafauna all became extinct, and we now begin to
Yeah,
understand
man, they do
why.
tours.
It's to
They do
with this
tour, especially of
peculiar
deer herds.
line that you see in this exposed,
They'll definitely come to
wash
Canada.
here.
They
This
came to
peculiar line
Canada
that's referred to as the black
year
mat, which
before
was
the friggin'
draped like shrink
COVID.
wrap over
Head
the
back.
top of
Thanks
the
for streaming.
remains
Yo,
of
thank you,
Eloise, and
man.
at the base of the black mat
Thank you,
are
buddy.
some very distinctive
raid,
chemical
I'm gonna raid
mineral
Eric, the director.
signatures, which include
He's going for a
iridium
runway.
and nanodiamonds. Here a closer
you,
look
Dirk.
at the black mat.
Yo, thank you,
Iridium,
Wade.
nanodiamonds, platinum.
Nice,
melt
thank you.
glass,
Let's Kalima.
carbon spherules.
Global
Those
unity, sweet.
nanodiamonds are created by the shock and heat of a cosmic
Okay.
impact.
Thanks, guys.
When you
You guys
find
rule.
all of these impact
day.
proxies together.
Yeah, man, they come in
abundance.
They might be in a video. They usually do like I get like a weekly video of like Cindy Miller talking about stuff and making that video. I'll watch her. I watch her. She usually talks about that stuff. Or Richard Moore, whoever.
What is still a very controversial hypothesis, and that is called
Wade, Dick, thank you.
the Younger
Angel, thank you.
Dryas impact hypothesis. And they are suggesting that this black mat and the